Welcome, it's Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance, and we are joined today by Laura Hall. She is a member of the Alabama House of Representatives. But while she was a member of the House, actually, she was serving as a teacher, no longer,
Yes.
but I honor you for that.
Thank you.
And I want to speak with you about education. A lot
Sure.
of discussion about education
Sure.
lately in Alabama. As we know, Alabama has two budgets, a general fund budget and an education budget. The education budget is doing quite well. It's in surplus. The general fund budget is not doing as well. It's in deficit. And so there's been discussions about whether money should be borrowed from education to put into the general fund, whether the two budgets should be unified like done in most other states. What's your sense, Representative?
Well, when I came to Montgomery, we did have one budget.
Ah,
So the budget division has taken place since
okay.
I've been here.
So as a veteran, what do you think? I mean,
Well, you know, I didn't really think that, well, I do know the idea was to allow for there to be focused mainly on the education
Sure.
part and to make sure that education received its fair share. So that's why the division occurred. It was a constitutional amendment.
right.
And so it looks like we may be headed for a constitutional amendment to bring them back together. I really would think that we would want to keep them separate. But
Yes.
the but is, it is not necessary if we treat education as our #1 priority. Because I'm a true believer.
Yes.
Education is the foundation of everything that we want this state to be about.
And I don't think you're alone. I
Right.
think most folks would agree. But there is this frustration, you know, when you look at kind of simple math, you see a deficit of 250 million of the general fund, and isn't it funny that the education fund is at 250 million surplus,
Sure.
and maybe more, and
Right.
so that can cause a little frustration. And in the end, look, we're all Alabama. Shouldn't we all take care of each other, all constituencies? And if one area is suffering, can the other area help?
You can, but the people of the state didn't feel that we
No,
would
they
be
did
fair.
not.
Okay, and so as I said, I think we have to have people. We have to do things that will cause people to trust us.
Right. So the governor, as you know, has called for increased revenues through taxes.
Sure.
Over $500 million
That's
in
right.
new taxes. But part of that plan would be to place some of the taxes that focus on the education fund side and allow them to go into the general fund
Yes.
side. Because all the growth taxes
Sure.
are in education,
That's
none of the
right.
growth taxes are in general fund. Would you be supportive of that shift at some level?
I think I would. I mean, I don't have any reason, and now I am one that I truly believe in when we're making changes or adjustments, having all of the information placed before me, giving me
Sure.
an opportunity to understand the impact or the lack of utilizing that process.
It's very interesting you said that because I want to ask you something. And I ask you as a teacher as well as an elected official. So I've spoken with other members of the legislature, and what they say is, my constituents have told me we should not raise taxes, and I am listening to my constituents. And I honor that viewpoint. But is there not another way to look at your election? When one is elected to office, yes, you're there to represent the views of your constituents, but at the same time, you have information they don't.
That's true.
And so have they not sent you to Montgomery to be their expert? And if you're just listening to the phone calls, to the emails, to what's on Facebook and Twitter, maybe you're not servicing them as well as you should because you know things they don't.
And I agree with you that that silent majority out there, it certainly is one that we should try to make sure we hear from. I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago, a group of family members, there were
Right.
providers, mental health. Their concerns were about mental health. And I was glad I went to that meeting. And I went to that meeting because I really wanted to hear, but I left that meeting also having a face because I had a parent that talked
Right.
about their child. I had an individual who had received services from the
Right.
agency and the impact. So I do think we get that message from our constituency, but I think we also have to make sure that we hear from all of them.
Right.
The most vocal ones sometimes are not the majority.
And so what do you do in that case? Because like you said, it is so easy to count the phone calls when the phone calls don't have the analysis that you
right.
have from the governor's office, which shows even though the economy is improving in Alabama, times fiscally are tough for the state, and the state needs money to create services.
That's right. And so what I do in my district, I have town hall meetings. I do different activities. I'm very visible over the weekends. I may spend a day at a barber shop just standing in the door talking to people. I find myself standing or at a parking lot in a grocery store, or when I go to get groceries, I allot myself a couple of hours because I know,
You know you're going to get
somebody's
stopped.
going to stop me for that. Okay,
It's a blessing and a curse.
right.
Being a
So I try to find other ways to get information, and then I agree. Sometimes I hear on the floor something that had not occurred to me. And I make my decision many times based on the information I receive.
I want to ask you about what you're hearing in your district and otherwise as it relates to what's known as Common Core. And again, I'm asking you specifically because you are an educator yourself. It's interesting, in some parts of this country, Common Core, not controversial at all. In other parts, you'd think it was the biggest controversy out there. What are you hearing in the Huntsville area in terms of Common Core?
Well, from the business community, I hear, let's keep Common Core. From the parents of children who have children that are in school, say who are maybe 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, are very frustrated. Because their child process or the way that they're taught, say math, has changed.
Completely.
Totally changed.
It's interesting because when you look at it, under No Child Left Behind, let's call it, it was more kind of drill and kill, give as much information as possible, and have them memorize it. But now what we're looking at is having maybe them learn less, but deeper.
Application.
Yeah, and deeper.
But if the child who started out one way, that is difficult. And I have a lobbyist here who came to me 2 weeks ago, speaking of their frustration about their child. Well, their child is in 5th grade.
It is hard. But look, there are members in the legislature that would like to do a couple of things with Common Core.
Sure.
Some would like to see it eliminated.
Exactly.
Others, on the other hand, would like to maybe see a moratorium or opt-out provisions. What's your sense?
I support it. And my reason for supporting is that because our children today are much more mobile than we were when I was growing. So they ought to be able to know, and they know what to expect. Parents ought to know what to expect when they move into another system. That what they had to learn in this area should be very close to what they're going to learn or have to know when they get to another area.
Are you hearing this is a national takeover? And
oh yeah, you hear that.
And what's the response? Because as I understand it, just factually, that's not accurate.
Well,
I mean,
now,
I'm not taking a position,
well,
but it's not accurate. It's not a federal
remember
program.
Now you're in politics,
okay.
So do you always get all of the right information? You get the side, and generally you get the one that's most vocal as opposed to the one that really have the real information or the complete information.
But is your sense Common Core in some form will survive in Alabama?
I think so.
I think in the end there's
enough
I mean,
support. For the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot of conversation about getting rid of it. But when you look at the movement, it moves, but it doesn't get to the place where it has been removed from the curriculum. If you look at what the state school board did, they changed the name.
So
it's
all in the branding.
So
all in the branding.
And they're continuing to work under that. So I think we'll be fine.
Her name is Laura Hall. She is a member of the Alabama House of Representatives. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's Charter Local Edition.